Our next speaker is David Baer. He works with transformative change in a business environment. He's the principal at Active Sustainability and a director at ARC Active. Hello. Hi. Welcome.
Thanks.
ARC Active provides sustainability and livability assessments of properties. David is also the convener, right, of the board of Living Smart. So please join me in welcoming David.
Yep, thanks Susan, and thanks Jane, that was fantastic. Hard act to follow, I'll see what I can do. So I've been given 10 minutes, and I'm going to actually hand over 2 of those minutes to all of you to start things off. I want you to spend a moment just to reflect on being here and what this is about, what GreenDrinks is about and what you're hearing. And then I've got my own more Zen type bell. I want you to then turn, I'll dong that after a few moments of reflection. I then want you to turn to someone who you don't know. And it might be a little bit tricky, so if you turn to someone you do know or end up with someone that you know, that's fine. And I then want you to introduce yourself and just share with them what attracted you to come to this particular GreenDrinks. What was it that brought you here, out of your homes or from your work? And then, since we're talking about change, I want you to just share in a word, or a couple of words. I want you to get in a conversation about this, because I've only got 8 minutes now, to talk about where does change happen? Where does change begin? Where does it come from for you personally? Alright, so just take a breath, big breath, and just dwell on that, be here. What brought you here? What for you? Don't start talking again. This is the reflection time. What about politicians? Does change happen with politicians? No. Somebody? What about with organisations, businesses, communities? Does change begin there? What about with self? Yes. Right answer. Fantastic. So that's probably what I want to talk about tonight, but I want to talk about the nature of change, how it links into leadership, and how, in my work, and I'm sure there's others, are bringing that into organisations, and how you can affect change from a personal space, engaging people around their own personal values and what that means for the nature of the work that they're doing. What I got you to do then was an interesting exercise. I didn't get much feedback from you yet, but what you did was, well, for some of you, you reflected. You spent time with yourself in a reflective way which might not be what you always do. You also shared with others, and you, hopefully a lot of you shared with people you hadn't met before. So now you know somebody else, and you engaged with them on a personal level, something personal for you about what brought you here. So they know a little bit more about you than they didn't know before. And as a whole, you all shared, collectively, but everyone in the room has shared something about change. And by doing that, it builds a really good dynamic. And you can imagine if we're able to take this process further through a series of workshop environments, through a level of deep engagement, what you can build from that. And if there was an organisational focus around that, or a group focus around that, what that might mean. So it's a process of deeper inquiry. It's the sort of stuff that the deep ecologists have been talking about for decades. And it's not just an engagement in an anthropocentric sense, human to human, but there's a level of engagement in the sense of self, engaging with yourself through reflection, others through conversation. And if we bring in this element of for what purpose, for sustainability and for the ecology of the planet, you can do some pretty powerful stuff. And I'm bad enough to be able to work in that space. A little bit, not all the time, but I can make a living from it. Margaret Wheatley, who's a fantastic author, and I recommend anyone to read her, in her 2010 book Perseverance, when she talks about change, says, getting engaged in changing things is quite straightforward. If we have an idea, or want to resolve an injustice, or stop a tragedy, we step forward to serve. Instead of being overwhelmed and withdrawing, we act. No grand actions are required. We just need to begin speaking about what we care about. We don't have to wait for official support. We just need to get started for whatever issue or person we care about. This is how the world always changes. Every day, people not waiting for someone else to fix it, to fix things or to come to the rescue, but simply stepping forward, working together, figuring out how to make things better. It's now our turn. So, I'm stepping into organisations around this space, and it's really starting from this premise. If it's going to be from me. And we expand that out into the organisation and saying, well, as an organisation, what are you prepared to do? And I got to this point because I actually was lucky enough to be able to help an organisation develop its own sustainability strategy. But it didn't get very deep. In effect, it was all above the waterline stuff. And for those who haven't seen the iceberg analogy before, you know, really, oh, gee, I've got to move now, haven't I? For those who haven't seen this, the idea is that typically organisations do the above the waterline stuff pretty well. That's what they exist for, and that's generally all that you really see. And it's the outer work of the governance, the business systems, the processes. It's what they do. I'm going to start talking fast now because I've only got a few seconds left. But it's what they do. And in the case of sustainability, many of them are really trying to respond to this in the best way they can. And so they're naming it as the situation. They're engaging in I guess what I would call a business as usual type approach. And what I mean by that, they're using their same thinking, they're using their same processes with an idea that they can create a solution from that point. So there's some fantastic things happening. I've seen it in many organisations that will go and develop a wonderful vision, mission statement, set a whole lot of KPIs, come up with some fantastic reporting framework, but at the end of the day, it all looks pretty much the same. It's a sort of a mechanistic type way of doing things. it's not going any deeper than that. It's not actually delving into any of the inner work. They're not really reflecting on who they are and how they're going about their business. So we're touching on that in a deep way with organisations. Our current client that I have, it was a good way to come around to this work. They put out a tender, and they wanted a consultant to come in, develop a sustainability decision-making framework, and then they wanted us to come in and train the people around that. I called them up and said, would you be prepared to work with us, or rather for us to work with you, where you develop your own strategy? And you actually come from a place of values, come from a place of what's important. All the stuff that you've written about in your strategic plan, but are you prepared to engage on that level? And they go, yeah, we'll give it a go. Fantastic. So we've got that work. We're now working with these people to look at what is the source of what they're trying to achieve for their local government, for their community, and what do they need to find in themselves. Because no amount of KPIs, no amount of strategy is going to help them get over the line. They're going to have to inquire into what is the outcome that they really want to achieve, and hopefully they'll move towards a different result. It's a result that, here's my notes, it's a result that another fantastic author, Marjorie Kelly, in her recent book Owning Our Future, says about living organisations. They have not only to do with the physical technologies, which is what we call the outer world stuff, but also with the social architectures. How the living relationships that compose an organisation become living processes. I'm going to finish in a minute. And feel alive to those within them. And that help create the conditions for life all around. You start with life and ask, how do we generate a condition for life's flourishing? The interesting thing with this local government we're working with have a life theme in their strategic plan. A few of you might know who it is. So it's been fantastic for us to work with them and say, do you actually want this local government to be alive? You want the people working there to feel like that they're alive coming in there? And do you want to be able to work with your constituents and really genuinely say, we are creating life for this local government? And at this point, they're saying yes. I'm going to jump through this and finish. That it is really about fundamentally conversations. The type of meaningful, strategic conversations you can have with people, clients, anyone you know, anyone you don't know, to start to elicit change. We're having those conversations with our clients. I like it through the Living Smart stuff that I'm also doing, of trying to raise this with the people of saying, what can you do differently that you might not normally do? And what change will that bring? And for what purpose do you want to create that change? Thank you.